We were RVing on the South Island of New Zealand, a truly breathtaking paradise where nature's beauty unfolds at every turn. From the serene waters of Milford Sound to the rugged peaks of the Southern Alps, we had so much we wanted to see. But unfortunately, travel doesn't always go according to plan. One thing many international visitors know New Zealand for is its wine. It can be found in many shops around the world, and thus our first stop in the north of the South Island took us to the Marlborough wine region. The fertile soils here and temperate climate create the perfect conditions for vineyards, and the region produces some world-class wines and is famous for its Sauvignon Blanc. We visited a few vineyards here and enjoyed the spectacular grounds. But things were starting to feel a little weird, and some of the vineyards were closing their doors to visitors. Regardless, we had a fantastic time talking with the locals and other travelers, along with tasting some terrific wine. This region seems to do whites best, and we found the Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, and Rieslings delicious. Little did we know that when we left here, this would be our last public adventure in New Zealand. Luckily, we were self-contained in our little homes on wheels and pushed further south down the coast, finding some amazing off-grid spots to stay the night. One unique side trip that we made was to Ward Beach. Here we found some strange geological marvels called the Moraki boulders scattered along the shore. These large spherical rocks have been shaped by the forces of nature over thousands of years and make for a very unique beach-going experience. So we've been driving down the northeastern coast of the South Island on Highway 1. We're currently on the Kaikoura coastline, which is dry, rugged, and incredibly beautiful. We are north of the town of Kaikoura at a point that has a healthy resident population of fur seals, and they're right in front of us. It was fun watching these adorable seals on the beach, but we noticed they were hobbling up under the road through a drainage culvert. We followed them under the road and found a trailhead following the creek up into the woods. We hiked upstream for a while and found dozens of these fur seals coming and going in the fresh water. We hiked until we found a mother seal nursing her pups in the trees. Not wanting to disturb, we watched from a distance. It was strange seeing the seals in this habitat, not exactly what we expected. It made it particularly interesting watching these adorable seals play and rest in their forested sanctuary. As we continued down the coast, we decided to split up from John and Peter once again as they wanted to visit Christchurch, and we were more inclined to see the mountains and a famous natural filming location. We were headed towards the interior of the South Island and crossed river after river of spectacular silty blue waters coming down from the Southern Alps mountain range that runs up the center of this island. We left the main roads and pressed up into a mountain valley. The landscape here was unbelievably beautiful, and we could already see why this island was famous for filming locations. We found the trailhead for a hike to a famous but less visited natural landmark.
So one thing New Zealand is well known for is that the very popular Lord of the Rings trilogy movie series was filmed here in the country. Many visitors come to find some of the sites that it was filmed at because they are incredibly stunning, like the one we are at today, which was the location for Edoras in the movie, actually called Mount Sunday here in New Zealand. It's actually on private land. We have cows roaming around, but it has a stunning view of the valleys and the Southern Alps behind us. We've heard a lot of Lord of the Rings references and seen some visitors that have come just to see some of these sites.
Or it's like a desert.
We need a Lord of the Rings scene with the sword.
Got me. Oh.
A nearby lake with free public camping made for a perfect place to spend the night in this spectacular mountain valley. The morning revealed even more natural wonders with a fog that had settled in the valley. It was hard to believe this was real and felt as if we were living in a movie fairy tale. We were getting going early as we were meeting back up with John and Peter. We met up along the shores of Lake Tekapo, a spectacularly silty blue water lake fed from the mountain glaciers. Lake Tekapo's outlet has been diverted to a neighboring lake for power generation. We took some back roads over to this lake, as it's probably one of the most famous in New Zealand and considered one of the most beautiful lakes in the world. It's Lake Pukaki, and it's the outflow from some of the largest glaciers and tallest mountains in New Zealand. There are lots of freedom camping opportunities along this lake, and we settled into a very secluded spot. The day was warm, and the water was just too tempting not to take a dip. Being glacier water, however, I wasn't able to convince anyone else to join me.
Wonderful.
Refreshing.
It's a good thing you don't work in marketing.
Oh, it's too pretty not to swim in. It was awesome, except for you can't see into it. So there's a lot of boulders. Whack your shit on.
With this spectacularly clear day, our campsite had a breathtaking view of Mount Cook, the tallest mountain in New Zealand. This particular campsite, with its combination of views and secluded nature, once again felt like a fairy tale, and it makes it into our top 5 most scenic campsites we have ever had. The following day, we trekked over to the other side of the lake to drive Highway 80 as far into the mountains as you can go, to Mount Cook National Park. Mount Cook stands at 12,200 feet, and we had great views of it the previous day from our campsite. But today, however, it was shrouded in clouds that occasionally spit rain at us.
We're going up a lot of stairs today.
Oh.
2,200 more steps to go.
No, we've done 4.
2196.
Did you say 200 more steps to go?
Plus 2,000.
Oh, yeah. Send us a postcard.
Here we go.
All right.
Wow. This is like pretty much climbing a ladder.
No escalator?
We only made it about halfway up the Mueller Hut Trail before we realized it was going to take far too much time to complete and had to turn around. Once we returned to our vehicles, we drove over to the nearby Tasman Glacier viewpoint.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, there's the glacier. Look at that.
The Tasman Glacier is New Zealand's largest and longest glacier. This glacier has been a focus of scientific study due to its significant and rapid retreat over the past few years. It was at this point in our journey that things started to get stressful. COVID-19 was declared a pandemic and we had no idea what New Zealand was going to do, but all the non-essential businesses were already shutting down. We looked into flying back home, but all the flights were booked or canceled, so it seemed for at least now we were stuck in New Zealand. We were extremely fortunate to be taking this trip by RV, as we were self-contained, self-isolated, and had stocked up on supplies. This didn't mean, however, that it was stress-free, and the worry of what to do and being so far from home ate at all of us. It was not a light decision to make, but we decided to continue our trip, visiting some of the more remote places and skipping the cities. We pressed on south towards Fiordland National Park.
Today we're heading to Fiordland National Park. It is a one-way road out to Milford Sound. It's about 73 miles, and since it is a one-way out and then back, we all piled into one RV, so we're riding with John and Peter today.
This region is located in the southwest corner of New Zealand's South Island. It's characterized by dramatic fjords, which were carved by glaciers over millions of years. The most famous of these fjords is Milford Sound, because you can drive to it. The entire area is a haven for a wide variety of wildlife, including several species of birds and plants unique to New Zealand. In addition to its natural features, Fiordland's isolation and the challenging weather conditions contribute to its mystique and allure. After a long mountainous drive, we reached Milford Sound. The natural view is iconic, like looking at the Grand Canyon or Yosemite, and we recognized it from several famous paintings. It's also big, so big even our widest lenses really couldn't capture it properly. At this point, we got news that travel would be restricted further in a few days, so we decided we needed to turn around and get back to the North Island, where Auckland and our only flight out could be. So we turned north instead of making it to the southern tip.
Come on, Kate, I'm gonna race you. You ready?
That's not funny, Peter.
John just shifted into reverse. I think John wants us to back away from the edge.
We did pass right through the town of Wanaka, famous for its Wanaka tree.
There, it looks like. Sure you can, it's right along the water.
This solitary willow tree grows directly from the waters of the lake, making it a unique and picturesque sight. It's possibly the most photographed tree in New Zealand, or the world, renowned for its striking appearance against the backdrop of the lake and the Southern Alps. As we thought we might still have a few days, we decided to drive up the western side of the island. We spent a day making stops to hike sections of Mount Aspiring National Park.
Oh, it's wet.
Is it wet?
It's like soaked. It's really cool, very soft. Like very ferny, leafy feeling, much more so than typical mosses.
It looks like a carpet.
It's totally like a shag carpet. And it's all the way around that whole tree trunk. It's amazing.
It was great to be out in nature and see almost no one else on the road, but also a bit disconcerting. We spent the night deep in isolation in this remote section of the island, but also had no cell service. When we awoke and drove back into cell, we realized it was game over. We'd received a note from the U.S. Embassy telling U.S. citizens that we needed to get to a place where we could stay indefinitely, or until we had a flight. But worse yet, news that the ferries between the North and South Island would be closing.
So today was a really big change in our trip. New Zealand is pretty much on the brink of a total lockdown, which is more serious than we originally thought it was going to be. And that means the ferries are going to be closing down between the South and North Islands. And we're on the South Island now, need to get to the North Island to be able to fly out of Auckland. So we need to be on the ferry. So today we're making a big 8 to 10 hour drive to get up north to get on some of the very last ferries available for passengers to get to the North Island, so that way we're at least on the correct island to catch our flight whenever that ends up being. It's definitely changed the pace of our trip, and it's knocked out a whole bunch of stuff that we were going to be doing. And today we just don't have any time to stop and see some of the things along this whole western coast, which, you know, even if we did have time, a lot of the things, most of everything is closed. There's hardly anybody out on the roads, and the spirit of it just isn't right. So today we're just trying to get to the ferry terminal, near the ferry terminal, so that we're ready for our departures to get back to the North Island.
We arrived in the middle of the night back to the first boondocking site we had stayed at on the South Island, and realized we weren't the only stranded travelers waiting for a ferry.
So it's the next morning. We arrived to this spot around midnight last night, and New Zealand is officially locked down now. All non-essential businesses are closed. Only things like supermarkets, gas stations are open, health services. We just had the emergency response team come through and actually check on us, which is really neat. They're just gauging how many people are out kind of stranded like us, if you will, in self-contained vehicles or wherever, making sure there's enough sanitation facilities. We talked with them for a while. We did get a ferry for both us and John and Peter this afternoon, one of the last ferries before they shut even the ferries down between the two islands for the next month. So we're lucky that we were able to get on a ferry. Hopefully we're still going to get on, and we're going to keep driving north to try to get on a plane. I think we still have a long journey ahead of us to try to get home.
We were fortunate, however, that we were able to get a spot on the second to last ferry north before they shut it down. It was a long day, and since most campgrounds were closed, we found a beach to stay at that night.
Well, hopefully the sea doesn't swallow us in the night. This is where we're gonna be for now.
For now.
We'll think about tomorrow.
So this morning we have awoke to a beautiful beachside view. The day has calmed down. It's gorgeous here. We wish we could stay, but we just learned this morning that the government of New Zealand is locking down all domestic travel, even for those trying to transit to an international flight. So here on the west side of the North Island, on a beach somewhere north of Wellington, we're gonna have to probably say goodbye to freedom camping and try to find a holiday park. We still have a bit of a journey ahead of us, but it sounds like we're gonna be able to get home.
The next day, we were able to find a campground nearer to Auckland that would allow us to stay isolated in our RVs. And there we would stay until we could get a flight out. These days were filled with restlessness and mental anguish of international news and our upcoming travels. But luckily we had our friends and bikes that allowed us to explore the deserted little town of Cambridge nearby. New Zealand had extended our visas and were offering stipends and to help find places to stay if we became stuck long term. We were, however, able to get a flight out about 10 days later. Wilderness RV was great and let us keep the RVs a little longer, and we simply parked them outside their facility and dropped the keys when we left. Luckily, walking distance to the airport. We had a very full and uncomfortable flight to LAX, as it was basically a rescue flight for trapped travelers. Arriving at Los Angeles International Airport was eerie, as this normally bustling airport was completely deserted. There were very few flights at this point, and we did a lot of waiting in airports as we hopped across the country on almost deserted planes.
Big noisy truck.
We arrived home a few days later, absolutely exhausted.
It feels backwards. Oh.
It feels so big.
But this big truck with 5 times the power of that motorhome, without a motorhome around, it feels like a sports car too. I don't get it.
Though our travels were unexpectedly shadowed by global events, this trip has only deepened our passion for adventure. Taking risks is an inherent part of the journey, and from this one, we've gained not only wisdom, but unforgettable memories. From navigating some of the most beautiful roads to pushing our limits, our journey across the 8th continent has been more than just a visit. It's a powerful reminder of why we travel, to explore, discover, and connect with the world.